The grand exhibition hall of the Galactic Council stretched across the orbital station like a cathedral built of starlight. Through its transparent dome, the combined light of 1,000 ships cast ever-shifting patterns across the assembled delegates. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the presentation podium, her dress uniform crisp despite the 12 hours of preparation that had preceded this moment. Above her, the holographic display showed the HS Prometheus in loving detail, all 300 meters of her gleaming hull and distinctive radiator arrays. As you can see, Chen continued, her voice steady despite the murmurs rippling through the alien audience, the Prometheus represents humanity's latest advancement in deep space propulsion, our fusion drive. A musical trill of laughter interrupted her presentation. The source was Ambassador Zixka of the Zatari Confluence, his iridescent scales catching the light as he rose from his seat. The crystalline translator at his throat sparkled as he spoke. "Forgive my outburst, Captain," he said, though his tertiary eyes crinkled with barely concealed amusement. "But surely you jest. Fusion drive. My species mastered fusion when your ancestors were still discovering iron. Surely humanity has something more current to present." Chen's fingers tightened on the podium's edge, but her expression remained diplomatic. 6 months of cultural integration training hadn't prepared her for the casual dismissal in the ambassador's tone. Around the hall, other delegates shifted in their environment suits or hovered in their containment fields, their own amusement evident even across species barriers. "Ambassador," Chen replied, bringing up the next set of technical specifications. "While fusion power might seem basic to your experience, our implementation offers unique advantages, like these rather prominent heat radiators." Another voice called out, this one belonging to a Pexillary representative, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with mirth. "How charmingly inefficient. Our ships converted to zero-point energy centuries ago. No heat management required." The laughter grew less restrained. In the diplomatic gallery, Chen caught sight of Earth's ambassadorial team trying to maintain their composure. This was supposed to be humanity's moment to showcase their achievements, to prove they deserved their seat at the galactic table. Instead, it was becoming an exercise in humility. Only one being in the audience wasn't laughing. In the observers section, ancient Extali ambassador T. Lara watched through multifaceted eyes that had seen millennia of species rise and fall. Those eyes narrowed slightly as they studied the Prometheus's schematics, particularly the intricate patterns of its radiator arrays. Chen took a deep breath and brought up the next display. "If you'll direct your attention to our innovative approach to thermal dynamics." "Perhaps," Ambassador Zixka interjected smoothly, "we should move on to the more advanced presentations. The Helios Corporation has brought their latest quantum slipstream drive prototype. Now that's proper space engineering." Chen felt her face grow hot as several delegates stood, clearly ready to move on. But training prevailed. She maintained her professional smile, even as she noted every dismissive gesture, every subtle sign of contempt. Let them laugh. Let them dismiss the Prometheus as primitive, with its crude fusion drive and wasteful heat management systems. They didn't know what those systems really meant, couldn't see past their preconceptions to recognize innovation when it wore unfamiliar forms. But they would learn. As Chen gathered her presentation materials, she caught Ambassador Tilara's eye. The ancient being inclined their crystalline head ever so slightly, not in dismissal, but in quiet acknowledgement. And perhaps, though Chen might have imagined it, with a glimmer of anticipation. The next presenter was already approaching the podium, their anti-gravity generators humming with sophisticated technology. Chen took her seat among Earth's delegation, spine straight, expression composed. Let them mock their ship. Soon enough, they'd see what humanity could do with these primitive tools. Soon enough, they'd watch humanity burn the stars. The exhibition's closing ceremony transformed the Grand Hall into a sea of shifting light. Holographic displays showcased the day's presentations in miniature, spinning slowly above the assembled delegates. The Prometheus's image looked almost humble next to the exotic designs of more advanced civilizations. Captain Chen stood with Earth's delegation, sipping water from a standard-issue hydration pack, while species around them consumed their various refreshments through everything from molecular synthesizers to photonic absorption fields. The diplomatic reception was meant to encourage interspecies mingling, but the human delegation stood in their own quiet island amid the cosmic crowd. Captain Chen. The musical tones of Ambassador Zixka's translator cut through the ambient hum of conversation. The Zatari diplomat approached with the fluid grace of his species, scales rippling with iridescent patterns that Chen's cultural training identified as indicating amused confidence. "I hope our earlier discourse hasn't dampened your spirits." "Not at all, Ambassador," Chen replied, her smile perfectly measured. "Scientific discourse thrives on diverse perspectives." "How diplomatic." Zixka's tertiary eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of calculated condescension. "Then perhaps you'd be interested in a proposal that would allow humanity to demonstrate these unique perspectives of yours." The conversation around them quieted. Chen noticed other delegates drifting closer, their various sensory organs oriented toward the exchange. In the observers' gallery above, Ambassador T. Lara leaned forward slightly in their crystalline perch. "We're always eager to demonstrate human capabilities," Chen said carefully. Zixka's scales shifted to a pattern of bright, sharp angles. "Triumph before victory." "Excellent. As you may know, the Helios sector has recently opened for colonial development. Prime territory, rich in resources." He paused, all three pairs of eyes fixed on Chen. "The Council is still determining allocation rights." Chen's grip tightened on her hydration pack. The Helios sector. Humanity's surveys had identified it as a potential goldmine of rare elements, but it lay far beyond their current colonial reach, or so everyone thought. "The Zatari Confluence proposes a race," Zixka announced, his voice carrying across the now silent hall. "From here to the Helios sector, through the Carina Nebula." A ripple of astonishment passed through the crowd. The Carina Nebula was infamous, a stellar nursery of such intense heat and radiation that most ships gave it a wide berth. The direct route to the Helios sector passed straight through it. "The winner," Zixka continued, "gains priority rights to the sector's prime systems." His scales flickered with patterns of absolute certainty. "Of course, we understand if humanity feels their current technology isn't up to the challenge." Chen's mind raced. The Carina Nebula, where temperatures soared high enough to overwhelm most ships' cooling systems, where radiation could fry standard navigation arrays, where their primitive heat management systems might just. "Humanity accepts," she said. The hall erupted in a cacophony of translated laughter and exclamations. Zixka's scales rippled with genuine surprise before settling into smug satisfaction. "Excellent," he declared. "We shall make the arrangements. All participating species will have 3 standard cycles to prepare." Though, he added with a diplomatic flourish, "we understand if humanity withdraws before then." As the crowd buzzed with excitement, Chen caught movement in her peripheral vision. Ambassador T. Lara had descended from the observer's gallery, their crystalline form refracting the hall's lights into complex patterns. The ancient being drifted past the human delegation, and Chen heard a whisper in her mind. "The Nextali's preferred method of discreet communication." "In all my centuries," the thought whispered, "the most interesting solutions have come from those who see what others dismiss." Chen watched the elderly ambassador glide away, then turned back to find Zixka still watching her with his multiple eyes, clearly expecting signs of regret or fear. Instead, she raised her hydration pack in a toast. "To innovation," she said, "in all its forms." The game was set. Now to show them what humanity's primitive technology could really do. Earth's orbital shipyards glowed against the night side of the planet, a constellation of artificial stars where humanity refined their dreams into reality. The Prometheus hung in her maintenance cradle, surrounded by construction drones and work crews in EVA suits. From the observation deck, Captain Chen watched as another set of modified radiator panels was carefully maneuvered into place. "Beautiful," isn't it? Dr. James Okonjo stood beside her, his dark eyes reflecting the sparkle of welding arcs outside. They laugh at our heat management systems, yet they never asked why we made them so elaborate in the first place. Chen nodded, remembering the mockery at the exhibition. How long have you been planning this? Planning? No. Okonjo's laugh was warm and deep. But preparing? My great-grandmother started this work, studying solar dynamics when Earth was still our only home. Each generation of my family added to the research. We knew someday we'd need to do more than just survive in space. We'd need to dance with the stars themselves. He gestured to the holographic display floating between them, showing the complex mathematics of their solar surfer drive. What looked like standard heat radiator panels were actually sophisticated solar energy collectors and redirectors, capable of riding stellar winds like ancient sailing ships once rode ocean currents. The Zatari think they're setting us up for humiliation, Chen said, watching another panel lock into place. They don't realize the Carina Nebula is exactly where we need to be. Most species built their ships to avoid heat, Okonjo agreed. They see stellar radiation as an enemy to shield against. We learn to embrace it, to work with it. He manipulated the hologram, showing the projected course through the nebula. Where they see an insurmountable barrier, we see a highway of plasma streams and solar winds. The display shifted to show the modified engine configuration. The fusion drive wasn't just for propulsion anymore. It was part of a complex system designed to synchronize with the nebula's natural energy flows. Each radiator panel could adjust its angle and absorption rate independently, letting them surf the stellar currents like a bird riding thermal updrafts. Dr. Okonjo, a young engineer, burst into the observation deck, her excitement palpable. The simulation results just came in. The new panel configuration increased efficiency by 28%. Okonjo's face lit up. Show me. Chen watched them pore over the data, their technical discussion flowing faster than she could follow. Around them, more engineers gathered, adding their insights and suggestions. This was humanity's true strength, she realized. Not just our technology, but our ability to collaborate, to build on each other's ideas. Captain, Okonjo called her over. Look at this. He highlighted a section of the simulation. The nebula's radiation patterns are more regular than we thought. If we time the panel deployments just right, we can use the stellar flares like a slingshot. Chen finished, seeing the pattern. The same forces that will force other ships to take longer routes will actually speed us up. Exactly. Okonjo's smile was bright. While they fight against the nebula's power, we'll let it carry us home. Through the observation window, the Prometheus's new panels caught the light of Earth's dawn, spreading like silver wings against the black of space. They were no longer just radiators. They were solar sails, heat collectors, and stellar wave riders all in one. 3 days until the race, Chen said softly. Will we be ready? Okonjo looked at his team, still energetically discussing improvements and adjustments. He thought of his great-grandmother, who first imagined ships that could harness the power of stars. Of his father, who refined the mathematical models that made it possible. Of all the generations of dreamers and engineers who brought them to this moment. We've been ready for longer than they know, he said. Now it's time to show them what humanity can really do. Outside, the rising sun caught the Prometheus's wings, making them blaze like a newborn star. The edge of the Carina Nebula painted space in shades of crimson and gold. Massive clouds of stellar matter twisted like abstract art, punctuated by the brilliant points of newly formed stars. Against this backdrop, 17 ships hovered in formation, their hulls gleaming with advanced technology. The Prometheus held position at the end of the line, its newly modified form drawing curious glances from passing scout vessels. All ships, confirm ready status, came the Galactic Council moderator's transmission. One by one, the participating vessels signaled their readiness. The Zatari flagship, Stellar Ascendant, pulsed with quantum energy, its crystalline hull refracting the nebula's light into rainbow cascades. Inside the Prometheus's bridge, Captain Chen completed her final systems check. Engineering status. Solar Surfer drive is primed and ready. Dr. Okonjo replied from his station. All panels are responding perfectly. We've got full articulation and maximum sensitivity on the stellar wind sensors. Chen nodded, watching the nebula's swirling energies on her display. The other ships were positioning themselves to skirt the nebula's edges, planning routes that would minimize their exposure to its fierce radiation. Their advanced shields and quantum drives would let them maintain impressive speeds, but those longer routes would cost them precious time. "Attention all vessels," the moderator announced. "Course is locked. The first ship to reach the Helios sector beacon will be declared winner. Remember, any assistance rendered to disabled vessels will be compensated with time adjustments." Ambassador Zixka's face appeared on the command screen, his scales shimmering with pre-victory confidence. "Captain Chen, a final chance to withdraw with dignity. The nebula's core reaches temperatures that would melt lesser ships." "Thank you for your concern, Ambassador," Chen replied smoothly. "But we're quite comfortable with heat." The ambassador's tertiary eyes blinked in sequence, amusement tinged with condescension. "As you wish. Though I suggest you watch carefully. You might learn something about real space travel." As his image faded, Chen turned to her crew. "All stations, prepare for Surfer drive activation. Let's show them what real space travel looks like." "Race commences in 20 seconds," the moderator announced. Chen's hand settled on the control interface. "Dr. Okonjo, deploy the wings." Outside, the Prometheus transformed. What had appeared to be standard radiator panels unfolded like the petals of a metallic flower, each surface aligned precisely to catch the nebula's energy. The other ship's crews watched in confusion as the human vessel's silhouette changed from utilitarian to ethereal. 10 seconds. Stellar wind patterns locked, Okonjo reported. "First solar sail sequence programmed. We'll catch that prominence eruption off our port side in 3 minutes." 5 seconds. Chen felt the ship thrumming beneath her, eager to prove itself. Around them, quantum drives flared to life. The Zatari flagship's engines pulsed with barely contained power. Race begins now. The nebula's edge erupted with activity as 17 ships engaged their drives. The stellar ascendant shot forward, quickly taking the lead as its quantum drive propelled it along its calculated safe route. Other vessels fell into formation behind it, their advanced propulsion systems pushing them to impressive speeds. The Prometheus didn't immediately follow. Instead, its wings caught the light of a nearby star, adjusting microscopically as sensor data flowed through its systems. "Now," Chen commanded, "the Solar Surfer drive engage." The Prometheus's wings caught the stellar winds like a master sailor catching a perfect breeze. They angled into a massive prominence, using its energy to sling them forward. While other ships fled from a sudden radiation burst, the Prometheus dove straight through it, its wings absorbing and redirecting the power. From the observation deck of the Council's monitoring station, Ambassador Tilera watched the human ship dance through phenomena that other species feared. Their crystalline form vibrated with something approaching satisfaction. The race to the stars had begun, and humanity was about to show the galaxy how to dance with fire. The Carina Nebula's interior blazed like the inside of a living star. Streams of plasma twisted through space in elegant ribbons, while magnetic fields shaped clouds of stellar matter into vast, shifting sculptures. The Prometheus soared through this cosmic light show, its silver wings catching and channeling the endless waves of energy. Stellar prominence approaching on Vector 217, Lieutenant Rivera called from the sensor station. Temperature spike, 8 million Kelvin. Captain Chen watched the massive arc of plasma rise before them like a tidal wave of fire. The other ships were already breaking formation, scattering to safer routes. Only the Zatari flagship maintained its heading, its quantum shield straining against the heat. "Dr. Okonjo," Chen asked, fingers hovering over the helm controls. "Perfect conditions," he replied, his voice bright with excitement. Angle of approach is optimal. Those magnetic field lines will give us exactly what we need. Chen nodded. All hands, prepare for prominence surfing. The Prometheus adjusted its course directly toward the plasma arc. Its wings shifted configuration, each panel aligning to create a complex geometric pattern that transformed the ship into a solar sail of unprecedented sophistication. Satari flagship is hailing us, Rivera reported. Ambassador Zixka's face appeared on the command screen, his scales flickering with genuine concern. Captain Chen, your trajectory is suicidal. That prominence will overwhelm any known shielding. Thank you for your concern, Ambassador, Chen replied calmly. But we're not planning to shield against it. She cut the transmission as they reached the prominence's base. The Prometheus's wings caught the upward flow of plasma, riding it like an ancient Hawaiian surfer catching the perfect wave. Energy readings spiked across every sensor, but instead of fighting against the power, they absorbed it, channeled it, used it, converting thermal energy to kinetic. Okanjo reported, his hands dancing across his controls. Magnetic field synchronization at 98%. We're going to catch the secondary eruption in 3, 2, 1. The prominence erupted again, sending a secondary wave of plasma spinning off into space. The Prometheus's wings adjusted microscopically, catching the new energy flow. They spiraled up the prominence's length, gaining speed with each rotation. Ship status, Chen asked, fighting to keep her voice steady as key forces pushed against the inertial dampeners. Hull temperature within tolerance, Rivera reported. Energy absorption systems at 85% capacity. We're actually cooling more efficiently than expected. The prominence's magnetic field is helping distribute the heat load across the wings. Through the main viewport, Chen watched the other ships growing smaller behind them. Most had been forced to take long detours around the prominence, while the few that tried to power through it were struggling against the intense radiation. Even the Zatari flagship, for all its advanced technology, was falling behind. Reading another stellar formation ahead, Rivera called out. Multiple prominences forming it looks almost like a spiral staircase of plasma. Okanjo laughed. The nebula's giving us a roadmap. Captain, if we time this right, we can ride that spiral all the way to the next sector. Chen felt a smile spread across her face. Humanity has been sailing Earth's oceans for thousands of years. Now we're just sailing an ocean of stars. Plot the course, Doctor. Let's show them how it's done. The Prometheus banked gracefully into the spiral formation, its wings adjusting to catch each new prominence's energy. They weren't fighting against the nebula's power. They were becoming part of its dance, using its own patterns to propel them forward. From the Stellar Ascendance Bridge, Ambassador Zixka watched the human ship with all 3 pairs of eyes. His scales had shifted to a pattern his species hadn't used in generations, the acknowledgement of witnessing something unprecedented. Remarkable, he whispered, as the Prometheus spun through another prominence, trailing stellar fire like a comet's tail. They're not just surviving the nebula. They're turning it into art. Deep in the Carina Nebula's heart, space itself seemed to pulse with energy. The Prometheus had taken the lead, its silver wings painting ripples of light through the stellar matter. Behind them, scattered across safer routes, the remaining ships pressed on. 3 vessels had already withdrawn, their cooling systems overwhelmed by the nebula's fury. Energy signature building at coordinates 34 Mark 7, Lieutenant Rivera announced, her voice tense. It's, Captain, I've never seen readings like this. Dr. Okanjo leaned forward at his station, eyes widening as he analyzed the data. Multiple prominence loops are converging. The magnetic fields are destabilizing. This is Nova-class stellar eruption. Rivera's shout cut through the bridge. Massive wave of plasma approaching. Through the viewport, Chen watched in horror as space itself seemed to tear open. A wall of stellar fire rose before them, dwarfing any prominence they'd encountered. The eruption's leading edge rippled with enough energy to overwhelm any known shielding. All ships, emergency alert. The Galactic Council moderator's transmission crackled with static. Withdraw immediately to safe coordinates. Chen's tactical display showed the other ships already turning, their engines straining as they fled. But 3 vessels at the edge of her sensor range were struggling, their engines damaged by previous radiation exposure. Time to eruption impact, Chen demanded. 2 minutes, 17 seconds, Rivera reported. We can still clear the danger zone if we alter course now. Chen looked at her display again. The Prometheus was in the lead. They could easily reach safety, claim their victory. The damaged ships were competitors, after all. But, Dr. Okonjo, Chen's voice was steady. Could our wings handle that level of energy? Okonjo was already running calculations, not directly. But if we reconfigure the array into a dispersal pattern. His fingers flew across his console. Yes, we could create a wake effect, like a breakwater against a tsunami. Those ships won't survive otherwise, Rivera said softly. Chen nodded. Plot an intercept course to the damaged vessels. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. The Prometheus's wings shifted, panels realigning into a new configuration. They swung around, positioning themselves between the approaching plasma wave and the struggling ships. Centauri flagship is hailing us, Rivera reported. Ambassador Zixka's image appeared, his scales pulsing with urgent patterns. Captain Chen, your course deviation is noted. The race. We'll have to wait, Chen interrupted. Ambassador, we could use your help. Your quantum shields might help reinforce our dispersal field. There was a moment of silence as Zixka processed this. His tertiary eyes blinked rapidly. You're attempting a rescue. The energy readings are beyond survivable limits. Maybe for ships fighting against it, Chen replied. But we're going to do what humanity does best. Adapt and overcome. Your choice, Ambassador. Race on alone, or help us prove that victory means nothing if it comes at the cost of abandoned lives. The plasma wave grew larger on their viewport, its leading edge crackling with deadly energy. Warning signals blared as their sensors registered temperature spikes beyond their design parameters. 30 seconds to impact, Rivera announced. Dispersal field at maximum, Okonjo reported. Wings locked in protection configuration. Whatever happens, Captain, it's been an honor. Chen gripped her command chair as the wave approached. Humanity didn't come to the stars to run away from their power, she said. We came to learn to dance with them. Now let's show them our best moves. The plasma wave loomed before them like the wrath of an angry star. But the Prometheus held its ground, silver wings spread wide against the fire, ready to prove that the same forces that could destroy could also become their greatest strength. Behind them, the stellar ascendant altered course, its quantum shields powering up to maximum. Together, human and alien ships prepared to face the storm, turning a moment of competition into one of cooperation. The nebulous heart blazed with challenge. Humanity answered with courage. The plasma wave hit like a stellar hammer. The Prometheus's wings blazed with absorbed energy, each panel straining as it channeled the massive forces away from the vulnerable ships behind them. On the bridge, warning signals screamed as systems approached their limits. Hull temperature critical. Rivera's voice fought to be heard above the alerts. Energy absorption at 115% of rated capacity. Reroute power to the wing stabilizers, Chen ordered, watching as their protection field fluctuated. Dr. Okonjo, status of the dispersal pattern. Okonjo's hands danced across his console, making micro-adjustments to each wing segment. The magnetic field is holding, but barely. Wait. His eyes lit up. Captain, the Zatari shields. They're creating a resonance effect with our dispersal field. Through the chaos, Chen saw what he meant. The stellar ascendant's quantum shields had synchronized with their wings' energy pattern, creating a harmonic wave that strengthened both systems. Where human ingenuity met alien technology, something new was emerging. The wave is changing course, Rivera reported, wonder in her voice. Our combined fields aren't just blocking it. They're redirecting it. On the main viewport, they watched as the plasma waves split around their protective barrier like a river around a stone. The deadly energy that should have destroyed them instead flowed past in streams of controlled power. Remarkable adaptation. Ambassador Zixka's voice came through clearer now. Your wings' dispersal pattern. It's not unlike ancient Satari light sailing principles. We abandoned that technology when we developed quantum drives. But perhaps, sometimes the old ways and the new can work together. Chen finished for him, watching as their combined technologies continued to tame the stellar storm. Behind their protective barrier, the 3 damaged ships had managed emergency repairs. Their crews transmitted messages of thanks in multiple languages, their relief transcending any translation barriers. As the plasma wave passed, the nebula around them had changed. The massive energy discharge had created new patterns of magnetic fields and stellar matter. The path ahead looked different from any of their planned routes. Doctor, Chen called to Okanjo. What are you seeing? He was already analyzing the new stellar formations. The wave's passage has created a series of magnetic tunnels, like a network of currents. His face broke into a wide smile. Captain, with our wings and the Zatari shields working together, we could ride these formations all the way to the finish line. Both ships, together. Chen turned to the command screen where Zixka waited. His scales had shifted to a pattern she'd never seen before, one that spoke of newfound respect. Ambassador, she said, I believe we have an opportunity here. Not just to finish this race, but to demonstrate something greater. Would you be willing to continue our collaboration? Zixka's tertiary eyes blinked in sequence, but this time there was no condescension in the gesture. Captain Chen, I believe my people have much to learn from yours, as perhaps you have things to learn from us. Shall we proceed together? The Prometheus and the Stellar Ascendant moved in formation through the nebula's transformed heart. Their combined technologies created a harmony of old and new, each strengthening the other. Behind them, the rescued ships followed in their wake, protected by the same forces that had nearly destroyed them. From the Council's observation post, Ambassador Lara watched the collaboration with crystalline eyes that had seen centuries of spatial development. At last, they whispered to themselves, they begin to understand. The stars are not to be conquered or avoided, but to be danced with. And the dance is always more beautiful when performed together. The nebula's light played across hulls both human and alien, turning them all to gold in the cosmic fire. Ahead lay the final stretch of their journey, but they would face it not as competitors, but as partners in a new way of moving through the stars. The Helios sector beacon pulsed against the backdrop of newly born stars, marking the finish line of their incredible journey. The Prometheus and Stellar Ascendant approached in perfect formation, their combined energy fields painting ribbons of light through the stellar matter. Their shared wake had guided the rescued ships safely through the nebula's transformed heart, creating a new path where none had existed before. Final approach, Lieutenant Rivera announced, her voice carrying the quiet pride of someone who had witnessed history. Beacon tracking confirms, we're neck and neck with the Zatari captain. Chen smiled, watching the distance markers tick down. The race's end was moments away, but somehow its original purpose seemed distant now. On her command screen, Ambassador Zixka's scales rippled with thoughtful patterns. Captain Chen, he said, I find myself reflecting on the meaning of victory. Oh. Chen's fingers danced across her controls, adjusting their wing configuration to maintain the delicate harmony with the Zatari shields. When this race began, I thought to teach humanity a lesson about its place in the galaxy. Zixka's tertiary eyes focused on something distant. Instead, you have taught us all something far more valuable. The beacon grew larger in their viewport. Dr. Okanjo's voice came from his station, where he was recording the final readings of their revolutionary journey. The combined field strength is actually increasing. The nebula's energy patterns, they're responding to our passage. We're not just moving through space anymore. We're becoming part of its dance. That's what humanity brings to the stars. Chen replied to Zixka. "Not just our technology, but our perspective. Every challenge is an opportunity. Every force that could destroy us can also lift us higher if we learn to work with it instead of against it." The finish line approached. Both ships maintained their perfect formation, neither pulling ahead nor falling behind. In the observation gallery of the Council's monitoring station, Ambassador Tilera raised their crystalline form in appreciation. A joint crossing, the ancient being's thoughts whispered across space. How appropriately symbolic. The Prometheus and Stellar Ascendant crossed the beacon's marker simultaneously, their shared energy field blazing like a newborn sun. Behind them, the rescued ships emerged safely from the nebula, their crews sending messages of gratitude in a dozen different languages. "Race completion confirmed," the Council moderator announced. In light of the unprecedented circumstances and the joint rescue operation, the Council declares both humanity and the Zatari confluence as winners of the challenge. The Helios sector rights will be shared between both species. But the true victory was already taking shape. Within hours, the Council chambers filled with representatives from across the galaxy, all eager to learn about the revolutionary combination of human solar sailing and Zatari quantum fields. Dr. Okonjo found himself surrounded by alien engineers, sharing the principles that his family had developed across generations. The real breakthrough, he explained to an attentive audience, wasn't in the technology itself. It was in learning to see the stars not as an obstacle to overcome, but as a partner to dance with. In the diplomatic section, Chen and Zixka stood together, watching the spontaneous collaboration between species that had once seen each other as rivals. "Your ship's name," Zixka said thoughtfully, "Prometheus. In your mythology, he brought fire to humanity." Chen nodded. "And taught us not to fear its power, but to use it to build something greater." Perhaps the ambassador's scales shifted to a pattern of profound respect. "You have done the same for us among the stars." Above them, through the Council chamber's transparent dome, the Carina Nebula painted space in colors of possibility. The Prometheus's wings caught the light, no longer a mark of primitive technology, but a symbol of innovation born from seeing the universe with new eyes. Humanity had come to the stars not to conquer them, but to dance with them. And in teaching others to join that dance, they had found something greater than victory. They had found a future where the fire of the cosmos brought not destruction, but illumination, not division, but harmony, not an end, but an eternal beginning.